customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you.
Welcome back, revolutionaries, to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. Today we have John Bernatovicz. John, did I say that right?
Close enough.
Tell me how to say
Bernatovicz.
it.
I pronounce it Bernatovicz, but it is a funny thing in our family. At family reunions, there's roughly, I should know the number, 17 now. And we go around the dinner table and how do you say our last name? And there's 5 or 6 different variations of it.
Okay.
John, my mom and dad aren't around anymore to hold us accountable to the way it's supposed to, but I say Bernatovicz, but there's a bunch of variations.
What's the background?
Polish. Yeah,
Okay.
Polish, German connection. But yes, my grandfather came over in 19 something, very early. And it actually was Bernatovicz, W-I-C-Z, and he Americanized our name, turning the W into a V. And I told, because there's a bunch of Bernatowitzes in Erie, Pennsylvania, ironically, I learned of that years ago. And I would joke with my dad, why didn't he cut off just the last 7 letters of the name?
Right.
Right.
I was going to say, what did your grade school friends call you? Bernie? Berna?
Bernie was college. Johnny B was Johnny was my name as a young kid. And now that's what my friends call me today. So
Johnny B?
I get Johnny with my close friends. I get JB a lot. I don't get Johnny B much. No.
Okay. Well, John B is an entrepreneur, podcast host, speaker, HR advocate, and author of the new book, HR Like a Boss. So welcome, John. Let's get after it. How did you get into the HR world? How does one find themselves in the HR world?
Graduated from college at Kent State, go Flashes. I was played competitive golf there, Division I. Super proud, actually. Just learned that 3 of my I shouldn't say classmates, but Kent grads just got selected for the international team on the President's Cup. That's a really big deal. Most college representation from Kent State, which is amazing. All 3 Canadians. So congratulations to them. But played competitive golf at Kent. Thought about for about a week being a professional golfer, decided that wasn't the right thing for me to do long-term, and got a job with a company called ADP and called on and worked with HR and finance and IT professionals. And then after about 10 years of doing that, I got into the entrepreneurial spirit and got into executive search, and then ultimately started Willery back in 2010 and have been practicing human resources, sort of kind of, I would say as an owner, not doing it very well. And then obviously working and supporting and advocating for the HR profession my entire career, but really, really focused on it since 2010.
Tell us about Willery. Why is it Willery?
I have a 16-year-old son, Will, and a 14-year-old daughter, Mallory. Merge those 2 names together. Nice. Short story on that. This is around 2009, right in the midst of the recession. I had this great idea that I should quit my job and start my own business. My wife thought I was rightfully crazy. She told me, come back another time. And so I was sitting there holding my son, Will, while just after my daughter was born. And I was in one of those moments of just rocking him to sleep. And the name popped in my head. What if I merged Will and Mallory together, Willery? And then I went on GoDaddy and the domain was available, which made me think I'm the rightful owner of Willery.com. And then the next time I positioned the idea of quitting my job with 2 kids, when my wife was on unpaid leave from her job, I used the word Willery as what I would name the company. And I think my wife said yes. She said something other than no. And I just ran with it. And so that's how the name came to be. Super proud of it. My son is a avid entrepreneur, tennis player. He has no desires to work in an office. So I don't think any hostile takeovers are coming from him. My daughter's an artist. They do have fun with me at times working from home, but neither one of them showed any interest in working in the business, even though it's technically named after them. And we are a boutique professional services firm, John. We do three distinct things inside of our business that we share our services and expertise with our customers. First and foremost, we are known originally as a staffing firm. We are specifically focused in the HR, payroll, and HR technology space. So we headhunt for HR, payroll, and HR technology professionals. We also do staff augmentation, contract, interim support, primarily payroll, recruiting, HR systems, et cetera. And then we, as a part of that, we have built a full managed service. So if a client wants outsourced payroll processing support or outsourced recruitment support from a people perspective, we can do that on a long-term basis, just not short-term. And then secondarily, out of that side of our business, we ended up developing an HR technology consulting practice, which we are known for our vendor selection methodology. It's renowned in the HR tech space. We get sought out for our process to help clients navigate through their desired outcomes and aligning them with the right strategic technology partner. And then as a full service to those clients, we provide implementation, go live, stabilization, and optimization support. We can help clients select a system, implement it effectively, and make sure it works. We believe in HR technology being the cornerstone for advanced, successful companies. And then the third thing we do is an offshoot of the book I wrote. We do a fair amount of HR transformation work. If you have issues with inside of your business, we believe more than 9 times out of 10, it has to do with a person. And more often than not, executives and leaders, their biggest challenge they have is dealing with people. And we have a HR transformation model that's built out of the book I wrote called HR Like a Boss that helps companies transform how people feel at work and drive purpose-driven organizations to have productive, engaged employees that drive profitable results for their organization. That's Willery, I think, in 4 minutes or less. Sorry if I took too long.
That's okay. That's okay. And when someone says, and you got to probably tell me what HR is for dummies. When someone says they work in HR, to me, the layman, you might as well just say you work in the corporate world, just because HR to me could mean a dozen different things, right? It could be, compliance. It could be, recruiting. It could be culture. There's just so many layers. And I got to believe that, you can't do it all unless you have a team of HR or you outsource it. So, yeah, how do you define HR, human resources?
I actually define in my book as connecting your people to the purpose of your business. That's how I define HR. Now, from a technical perspective, there's a wide range of things that you have to do: recruiting, onboarding, payroll, compliance, benefits, a long list of them. And John, this is why I would say I'd say typically 3 types of HR professionals that work in a 50 employee company up to a 50,000 employee company. One, you have executive HR professionals that are strategists. They're responsible for leading mid to large size companies. And they have that responsibility to look at their job from a very high level and overseeing large subsets of employees, not only on their teams, but ones that they're responsible for. And then you have the subject matter experts that are whizzes and know benefits inside and out, or may know HR technology or payroll. They have their very defined responsibility inside of human resources. Again, probably 10 to 12 most common disciplines that can fall within human resources. And then last but not least is the one that gets to do it all, and probably something else, meaning a lot of small mid-sized companies, they do not have an HR professional. That's not their primary responsibility. They may be a controller that they also do HR. When you need to recruit someone, they recruit them. When you need to onboard someone, they do the paperwork. When you need to pay someone, they pay them. And those people are more generalist, is how I would describe them. And I believe in my heart of hearts that it's the most difficult job inside of any organization to do well because of what you just said, John. So many disciplined responsibilities. and you got to get them right all along the way. Otherwise, then people have their opinions about human resources, which can be very strong and can at times be very unproductive. And that's the reason why I wrote HR Like a Boss, is to hopefully inspire all those individuals to look at their job as a business, to reconnect with the love as to why they got into what they do, and not lose sight of their most important responsibility, which is their people and their employees, and advocating and driving meaning into their work and ensuring that they're engaged in what they do. I think all too often some HR professionals lose sight of why they do what they do because they're so focused on compliance or payroll processing or the technical parts of their job that they forget about the primary reason why they do it, which is to be an advocate for their employees.
Have you ever noticed that you can walk into Starbucks in any city, in any country, and your experience will be the same? It doesn't matter if the barista speaks English, French, Hebrew, or Polish, you'll have the same experience and your drink will be consistent as well. Or how about Chick-fil-A? It isn't just one store where they're based in Atlanta that says, "My pleasure." It's every location. If you think for a moment about the places you like to frequent, those who you love to do business with, I bet they have a consistent experience as well. It's not dependent on what time of day you go there, who you deal with, or what you're going there to buy. Is Disney better on a Monday than a Thursday? Of course not. Monday's Cinderella is going to give you the same experience as Thursday's Cinderella. So how do they do it? How do they deliver a consistent world-class experience? Well, it's all about exceptional journey maps that they've built for both their customers and employees. And you can do it too. The DiJulius Group has consulted with hundreds of companies to develop their own unique brand experience using journey mapping. Did you know that consumers will pay more to purchase from a company with a reputation for great customer service? That means even if you offer better products than your competitors, you're losing revenue if their service is better. So if you're struggling with lack of standards, customer complaints, unengaged employees, or scaling your business, and you don't have the resources for consulting this quarter, then you need to register for our upcoming Livestream workshops, where your team will have the opportunity to work with John DiJulius himself and our VP of Consulting, Dave Murray, to create your own journey maps. The workshops take place from noon to 3 Eastern Time on October 28th and November 4th. Visit thedijuliusgroup.com/livestream now to register. That's thedijuliusgroup.com/livestream. We can't wait to guide you in creating your own signature brand experience. See you in class.
So in HR Like a Boss, you talk about the cornerstone of love and ownership to do HR Like a Boss. Tell us what that looks like.
Well, I truly believe in my heart of hearts, and the idea of like a boss is what I describe as doing something amazingly awesome. And I challenge people all the time, non-HR professionals, raise your hand if you know an HR professional that you would describe that does their job in an amazingly awesome way. And I don't get a lot of hands that are raised. And my belief is that more often than not, it's a lack of passion and it's a lack of ownership is what ends up preventing those individual HR professionals from being as successful as their role provides them the opportunity to be. And I start with this idea of love. I believe that you need to love what you do in order to do it well. If you do not have passion, if you do not believe in what you're doing, then you're likely going to consider your job as a 9-to-5, and it's going to be a means to an end. And that's okay. Some people live their life that way. I just feel like there's way more to it than that. And as it relates to ownership, my main encouragement around that is to have every single HR professional that I write about in the book to look at their job like it's their very own business and treat it that way, like it's their very own company. And sometimes that's hard for W-2 employees to look at their job as an entrepreneur would, but I encourage them to do so and take a level of accountability and responsibility for their job, that no matter what happens, it's my job to make sure that our employees find meaning in what they do and that we're representing them. And then, oh, by the way, I do whatever my discipline job is really well. And I do my job that I'm responsible for really well. If you're a payroll manager, then advocate for your people, provide passion for what you do, and be great at payroll. And if you do those things, you may be described as doing HR like a boss.
So, John, we have a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs listening to this, maybe not necessarily HR, but if I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm a CEO, what do I need to give the autonomy, maybe? What do I need to provide so my HR can, lead like a boss, or, be a HR like a boss?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to create a partnership with whoever is responsible for your HR function within your company. It has to be a true partnership. I think employee parties and events are important, but if you're relegating your HR function just to planning parties, then hopefully they'll do a kick-ass job doing that. But there's way more to it than that. And
you can get an event planner to do a better job and probably cheaper, unless you're having it every month.
Yes. And I would say that the partnership is critically important. And then secondarily, I cannot say this more clearly in my experience, is that you as a CEO and visionary need to set out what it is you expect, what your vision is, and what are the rules of engagement? What are our core values and how we're going to treat our employees? Then from there, I think you need to make a distinction as to what's more important inside of your business. Is it your people, your employees? Is it your customer? Is it your bottom line? Whatever it is, you need to make a distinction, prioritize them, 1, 2, or 3. And all too often, I think my dad was an accountant, and he would joke about how he barely got his degree from John Carroll, ended up becoming a CFO and a CEO. He had real practical business knowledge. And I remember him telling me once, John, profitability is important, but look at where it falls in your profit and loss statement. And I didn't know what that meant until I went to college and ran a business. Profit is an outcome of doing a lot of things really well, or if you don't have profit, very poorly. And if we're so hyper-focused on profit as being as a significant priority, then we may be doing things backwards. I'm a believer that if you invest in your people, if you take care of them, if they know that there's resources to do their job well, then as a result, you will drive higher sales, you will run lower cost of goods sold, you will have a greater output of profitability. And as a CEO, you probably might enjoy doing what you do a little bit more than trying to grind at your work every single day.
I always assumed, as an outsider of the HR world, that they actually, one of their more pleasurable parts of the job was the recruiting. But in your book, you talk about how a lot of HR professionals dislike recruiting. Why is that?
Well, frankly, I was shocked to learn that when I first started asking the question, tell me what you love to do in human resources. And they'd list off a number of things. And then I'd ask them, what do you not like to do? And the consistent answer was recruiting. The primary response to that, to answer your question, John, is I think it's a very sales-based oriented job. It's heavily marketing-based. And quite frankly, a lot of HR professionals don't have that experience and knowledge and skill to do that. And as a result, they don't do it particularly well, or they run away from it. And then as a result, you rely upon things like Indeed or ZipRecruiter to post a job and hope you get candidates. The issue is that the best candidates that are available for most positions are passively working at they're passively not working in a search, meaning that they're not engaged in trying to find a new job, and you have to go network and hunt them out and seek them. That's why our firm has the service that we provide, because we notice a gap in the market that there just isn't a significant enough effort put from HR professionals and frankly invested by a business and CEOs to build an effective recruiting machine inside of an organization to find consistent top talent.
Yeah. So let me ask you, is it the recruiting part that they dislike, which I think, or the interviewing part, or both?
I don't think it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the interviewing part. I think that part they're
think they
keen
would
on.
like
I think it's
that.
a
Well,
sort.
again, it all depends on their makeup and their chemistry. If you like compliance, if you like, that stuff, then you probably aren't a people person where you want to be sitting down and selling the brand to someone, right? It's two different skill sets.
I truly feel like the primary issue with it is the sourcing of it.
Yeah.
I think HR professionals as a whole are proficient, skilled, knowledgeable of creating a job description, building a requisition for the hiring manager. And nowadays with ChatGPT, we can automate some of that and make it much easier and streamlined. That part I'm not necessarily concerned about. Once they get the candidate into a qualified candidate into an interview process, I think HR professionals are great. They're also great at building the offer letters and all that goes with it. I think the real challenge is spending the time, energy, and effort to source candidates, high quality candidates, because it takes a lot of time, John. And there's a very unique skill that you have to be able to do to look through a database, have a broad network, get a job requisition, and start to build a pipeline of quality candidates. And inevitably what ends up happening because of the lack of time and desire and skill, they end up posting the job on a job site, and you get 300 candidates apply, and you'll be lucky if one of them is qualified. You'll be lucky. And as a result, that's where our interview pool is coming from, which then because of that, you get these, no call, no show, you set up interviews and no one's there. And then, or someone shows up and you have a job as an engineer and all they want to do is talk about marketing. And I just think there's a real art and science, quite frankly, into sourcing. And that's the one area that if you're a CEO listening right now and saying, hey, what the hell am I listening to this show for? This is an HR guy. Figure out your sourcing, how you're sourcing high quality candidates and giving your HR, whoever's doing your HR recruiting, a leg up to be able to leverage resources to be able to do that in an effective way.
You talk about in your book, the HR Like a Boss business plan. Tell us a little bit about that.
This was the aha moment. I remember listening to another author in the midst of writing my book, and he referenced the money chapter. This is the money chapter. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to steal that. Chapter 14 of my book, HR Like a Boss, is my money chapter. And basically what I did was I got a great piece of advice from a friend who'd written a number of HR books that he was very specific with me about. Create a how-to. Give the HR professional a plan on, don't talk in high theory, give them specifics. And I took that recommendation along with having had experience and having worked in and run companies and developing operating systems for organizations. And there's a number of them that are out there. And we ended up developing the HR Like a Boss business plan, which starts first and foremost by having a purposeful commitment. I know that's important to you, John. We've talked about that in the past, you and I. It's critical to me for a CEO to declare on behalf of your organization, what is the purpose of our business? What is our aspirational why? Not your mission, different. Not your vision, different. Not your core values, different. Why are we in business? And then as a result of that, what good are we trying to do within our community as a result of that commitment? I love those purposes to be 4 words or less and be repeated everywhere on advertisements inside of, if you have a mug inside of your company that you give coffee out with, have your purpose on there next to your company name. Then after that, you need to be people-centric. I have this suggestion that I make to all non-CEOs is that you need to play people first poker with your CEO and look them square in the eye and determine if they are all in and will always put your people first before everything else. Unfortunately, in most cases, that's not true. And if your CEO is not going to do it, it's going to be an uphill battle for you. But you as the HR professional and leader must put your people first. Then The next part of the business model is that you have to produce on a consistent basis. And the simple way for me to recommend to people to do this is that every single employee inside of your company must know what their number one responsibility is. It must be a measurable metric, and they must have the tools and resources to do that effectively. And then you, as a leader and manager, must measure it. And when they hit on their metric, you must reward them and recognize them. And when they don't, you must create accountability. All too often, I hear employees tell me, I have too many job responsibilities. What do you want me to do first? Let's make it really clear what their number one priority is and have it done on a consistent basis. Last two items are process continuity. Every key process inside of your organization must have a level of continuity, which means you must have a beginning and an end, and everyone must know, how do we issue a sales order? How do we collect payment? How do we do payroll? How do we market our business? All those key business processes must have continuity and an A through Z step-by-step process, and can be repeated by the owner. And even if needed, can be explained by others inside of the organization, because there's a consistent process that you go about doing your operations of your company. And then last but not least is having the profitable characteristics that you're looking for within your organization. And what my main driver to that is, John, is that every single employee, from CEO down to an intern who's unpaid, should understand how your two main business reports work and what it looks like. What is a profit and loss, top to bottom? And then what is your balance sheet? And you should share that information with all of your employees on a consistent basis. Weekly is too often, at least monthly, or no less than every 3 months. And educate them on what your profit and loss looks like and where your balance sheet is, because those are great forms of education to help your employees become more financially savvy. They can become better investors in their own stock portfolio, and then they'll be aware of how good or bad the company's doing, so that when good things happen, then they should be being paid bonuses. And if not, they should scratch their head. And if things are not going well, and they should see that on their profit and loss, and if reductions of force have to happen, they may not be surprised. That that's a quick description of chapter 14 and the kind of beginning of end of the HR Like a Boss business plan.
We're speaking to John B., who is an entrepreneur, podcast host, speaker, HR advocate, and author of the new book, HR Like a Boss. John, how can our listeners find out more about you?
You can go to hrlikeaboss.com to learn about the movement we're creating, transforming work through the power of human resources and bringing meaning and engagement back to your employees' lives, driving results for your business, and making an impact in your community. We've also developed an entire online community, which we offer free for any of your podcast listeners. Hop on that website, click the join community section, and use the word BOSS, BOSS, when you check out for that promo code. You can also learn about my business, Willery, at WILLORY.com, or you can email me at any time, John, JOHN, at Willery, WILLORY.com.
And all those things you just listed will be in the show notes of the podcast. John, thanks so much. I really enjoyed talking to you about this. I learned a lot from your book and our conversations. I appreciate having you.
Hey, John, thank you. And keep up the work you're doing. It's amazing. I love the fact that you focus on customer, and now we got the employee experience revolution. I think it's amazing. Keep it up. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, John. We'll be right back, Revolutionaries.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give the Customer Service Revolution podcast a thumbs up and write us a review. To hear more episodes, subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and for being part of the Customer Service Revolution.